When a young alpha inherits his father's position, the entire pack is skeptical of him. Chapter 41 Aftermath. I gave Daniel's hand a gentle squeeze as he lay unconscious on the hospital bed. All I wanted right now was for him to open his eyes. I leaned forwards in my chair to give his cheek a soft kiss. My wolf and I both missed him. I ran my fingers through his messy brown hair, brushing some loose strands out of his face. A gentle knock at the door caused me to lower my hand and look towards the door. Lucas peeked into the room, first looking towards Daniel, then at me, before walking in. "Hi, Lauren. His condition isn't any better," he asked solemnly, even though he already knew the answer. I shook my head no. I wish there was something I could do. "Me too. I hate seeing him like this," I replied as I looked down to fumble my fingers. I didn't have to look up to know Lucas was giving me a sad look. "I'm sorry to bring this up right now, but can you come with me? Jeremy and Madeline think you should be present for the meeting we're about to have." "Can't I stay? I don't want to leave his side. And what if he wakes up when I'm not here?" He smiled weakly. "Don't worry. It won't be long. To my extraordinaire Madeline Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. But if I get news that he woke up, I'm running out of there." "That's completely understandable." There was a pause before he spoke once again. "Follow me." I stood up and gave Daniel's hand one last squeeze before following Lucas out of the pack hospital. Before leaving, I made sure to tell the nurse to let me know immediately if his condition changes. As we walked towards the pack house where the meeting was being held, "How is everyone holding up?" If I'm being honest, Jeremy and Madeline feel terrible. She lost her mate and he lost his father. And even though Jeremy is technically the alpha, John was still in command. For the most part, so losing him has been tough for everyone in the pack. There are many mourning his death, but some are becoming skeptical now because of what your uncle said. I replied, feeling unsettled. Lucas turned to face me with a concerned look. "What about you? How are you doing? You also lost someone. And on top of that, you found out that it may have been Alpha John's fault that your parents died." To be honest, I haven't really had time to think about my feelings. I was busy trying to escape when we were being held captive, and now I'm busy worrying about Daniel. I took a deep breath and continued, "But I do feel a little sad. I lost the only family member I have left. I had already acknowledged the fact that he was no longer the kind person I once knew, but it still hurt for some reason. To see him take his last breath. To know that he was saved from himself. He let his trauma consume him and it drove him mad." Lucas's face turned solemn as he searched my eyes. He remained silent, waiting for me to finish. As for what my uncle said about the alpha, I don't know what to expect anymore. If what he said is true, I wouldn't know how to react. I would feel angry at the alpha, but he is already gone. I would want some sort of justice for my parents, but there's nothing that can be done. I noticed Lucas was no longer walking beside me. I turned to find him standing behind me. He took a few more steps so that he was standing in front of me. "Hey, I know we don't know each other too well yet." He opened his arms, so I gave him a puzzled look. "But you look like you need a hug." He gave me a shy smile, so I smiled in return and walked into his arms. The hug was gentle and comforting, but also respectful. He didn't touch me too much or keep his hands too low. I relaxed a little. Even though we didn't know each other very well, I could tell he cared. I smiled at the thought. Even though I no longer had any immediate family, having pack members who support me made me feel like I was part of a family again. I pulled away from his hug and gave him a thoughtful smile. "Thank you, Lucius. You're amazing." He chuckled and said, "It's nice to hear a compliment every once in a while instead of getting roasted by Daniel and Jeremy all the time." "I www I said playfully. Lucas sighed dramatically and added, "It's because I'm the youngest." We both laughed and continued walking, resuming our conversation on the way. I felt slightly better now thanks to Lucas. When we arrived, Madeline, Jeremy, Blair, and Lucas and Daniel's fathers were at the meeting. along with a few other pack members. I noticed everyone's eyes were on me as I made my way to an empty seat. I looked around and saw that everyone had a serious yet desolate look on their face. Jeremy's eyes looked red like he had been crying, and his usual laid-back, high-spirited composure was gone. Luna Madeline looked completely broken down as sadness weighed down her eyes and lips. It was like her body was here but her mind wasn't. Now that Law and Arrington is here, we can begin. Nuka's dad, Harrison, spoke out. I apologize for bringing you out like this, Madeline began while looking at me. But this is something you need to be here for. It concerns you and your family. She looked towards the rest of the pack members and said, I called you all here to discuss what the recent threat, Raphael could play, announced to everyone on the battlefield. He claims that my mate, John, sent terror and Fletcher Arrington to their deaths. I regret to inform you all that he was not lying. He spoke the truth. My breath caught in my throat and my pulse quickened at her announcement. Then Raphael was telling the truth. My parents really were tortured to death. My eyes watered at the thought of my parents spending their last moments getting stabbed, beaten, and abused. Her words reopened a wound, one that had taken years to heal. A few gasps escaped some of the pack members. A silence fell upon everyone as they all sat feeling perplexed and betrayed at the table. Jeremy's eyes were wide and he was shaking his head as if he couldn't believe what she was saying. His eyes then snapped up to mine, giving me a look of guilt. Blair silently rubbed his hand to soothe him. He relaxed slightly but was nowhere near being okay. None of us were. Madeline continued. John did not want them to die, nor did he think that's what was going to happen. But he sent them knowing that he was the one they were looking for, knowing they were out for his blood. He did not want to endanger his own family, but in the process he hurt another. He deeply regretted his actions, but he continued to make mistakes. Instead of announcing his error, he hid this from the pack, from his son. He told me the truth, but I also hid because I did not want him to receive backlash from the pack. I felt my hands begin to tremble as she continued to release more hurtful information. My parents were nothing but kind and loyal, yet the Alpha turned his back on them. He got them killed and then hid the fact that it was his fault. Madeline looked at me with a regretful expression. I'm sorry to everyone who was hurt because of our actions. I'm sorry to Lauren and her family for wronging them. I'm sorry to the pack who we hid the truth from. I will make a formal announcement to the rest of the pack and will no longer keep the title of Luna. My son Jeremy and his mate will take over and be better leads than my mate and I ever were. As Madeline finished talking, the tension was high among those in the room. Everyone looked surprised, disappointed, and hurt. You are all dismissed from this meeting. If you have any questions for me, feel free to stay behind. I immediately stood up from my seat and attempted to rush out. However, I was stopped when Jeremy called out to me. Wait, Lauren, he said softly. I slowly turned to look at him and found guilt and sadness in his expression. I'm so sorry about what my dad did. I know this apology probably means nothing, but I will take responsibility for what happened to your parents. And if there's anything I can do, please let me know. I smiled sadly. Why are you apologizing? You did nothing wrong. I don't blame you in any way. I won't hold you responsible for your father's mistakes. Not like my uncle. You're obviously suffering too and have been through a lot the past few days. You should rest up and take care of yourself. He let out a breath and smiled slightly. Thank you. I will take responsibility for this situation and find a way to honor your parents. I promise you that. His words reassured me. Though my parents died many years ago, knowing that they would be acknowledged by the pack and commemorated was something that I needed to move forward. That would mean a lot to me. Thank you. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. It's the least I could do. I'm going to go back to Daniel now. I've left his side for too long. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. They'll pay him a visit soon, if you don't mind. Not at all. He smiled at me weakly before heading back to the others. I made my way back to the hospital and entered Daniel's room. He was still asleep, laying peacefully on the inclined bed. I took my seat in the chair beside his bed and watched his chest rise and fall with gentle breaths. I took one of his hands in both of mine and leaned forward, resting my forehead on his bed. Please wake up soon. I need you right now. Chapter 40. To safety. I woke up to a knock on the door. I raised my head to see Daniel's mother Eliza and his father Keenan come into the room. Eliza wears a worried look on her face as they approach me. "Oh, sweetie," she begins. "You're still here. You should go and get some rest." I blink my eyes, still a little groggy from just waking up. I can't leave Daniel. What if he wakes up while I'm not here? As much as he would love to see you when he wakes up, he would want you to take care of yourself, she urged. I agree with my mate. Keenan wrapped an arm around Eliza's shoulder and continued. You would feel terrible if he saw you like this because of him. I looked down at Daniel and rubbed my arm anxiously. How about you go shower and get a change of clothes? We'll stay here with him and let you know if he wakes up, Eliza suggested. Okay, I agreed reluctantly. But it will be quick. Eliza smiled at my response. I got up to leave but was stopped by Daniel's father. Sorry, before you go, is it okay if we talk for a minute? I nodded and said, yes, of course. I just wanted to apologize. You spoke sadly, for everything that happened. With your parents, with your uncle. As the Delta, I should have been aware of everything that was happening with the pack and been more attentive about the circumstances surrounding their death. Your parents were amazing people. They didn't deserve what happened to them. Eliza stepped forward and said, I also apologize. On behalf of the pack and everyone involved in this. No, there's no need for you guys to apologize, I declared quickly, not seeing why they needed to say sorry to me. You guys did nothing wrong. We still feel bad for everything that happened. I wish you didn't have to suffer so much. Daniel's father nodded, agreeing with his mate. Eliza looked at her son and brushed back his hair before looking at me and continuing. If you ever need anything, we're here for you. You're family and we want to make sure you never have to go through anything like that again. So don't be afraid to reach out to us, Keenan added. I looked down as a small smile took over my lips. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Benson. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Now go get that change of clothes, Eliza said as she gently pushed my shoulder so that I walked towards the door. I'll be here with Daniel, so don't worry. I smiled and nodded. I will be right back, I said before leaving the hospital room. I made my way to Daniel's room in the pack house. After I opened the door, I peeked inside, almost expecting to find Daniel in here. I entered and closed the door behind me. I took in a deep breath and sighed contentedly as Daniel sat flooding my nose. I looked around the room at all of Daniel's belongings. It felt strange being in here without him. It made me miss him even more. I turned to Daniel's closet and looked for one of his shirts to put on after I showered. I wanted to have his scent with me to help me relax. I also took one of his lounge shorts and a pair of my underwear that I have stored in his dresser. I headed to the bathroom and took a quick shower. I didn't even bother drying my hair. I didn't like the idea of not being by Daniel's side. I just changed into Daniel's clothes and made my way back to the hospital. Hopefully Daniel doesn't think I look like a bum when he sees me. I have a lazy appearance, especially since his clothes are oversized on me. I entered Daniel's hospital room and found his parents sitting next to his bed. His mother was brushing his hair with her fingers and his father was resting his hand on Daniel's arm. They both seemed really worried about him. When they saw me enter, they both turned to me. Oh, Lauren, you're back so soon. Eliza spoke out to me as I stood at the doorway. I didn't want to be away for too long, I commented. Eliza smiled and said, Thank you for caring so much about my son. I'm glad he got lucky enough to have an amazing partner like you. I smiled back and said, Thank you. But if you ask me, it's say I'm the lucky one. Eliza and Keenan looked at each other and smiled. She's so sweet, Eliza gushed as she sighed, hugged her mate. Then we'll leave him to you. Just let us know when he wakes up, Keenan said. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. They stood up and walked out of the room after saying some goodbyes. I looked at Daniel's relaxed features as he lay in a restful slumber. My thumb gently brushed over his cheek, caressing his soft skin. I then leaned in and placed a light kiss where my thumb had just been. I took the now empty seat beside Daniel's bed, picking up a book I had been reading the past few days while waiting in the hospital. I held Daniel's hand with one of my own while the other turned the pages of the book that now rested on my lap. I blinked a few times and opened my eyes. I must have fallen asleep while reading again. My head was resting on the edge of Daniel's bed. The nurses must be coming to turn off the lights at some point because it was dark in the room, except for the moonlight seeping in from outside. My heart leapt when I felt a hand stroking small circles mine. My head snapped up to meet Daniel's gentle blue eyes, which seemed to absorb the moonlight and glisten even brighter than usual. His mesmerizing eyes were staring down at me lovingly while his hair was tousled into a messy bedhead. I stumbled as I got up quickly from my seat, throwing myself into Daniel's arms. He chuckled as he took me in his arms, holding me tightly. The two of us lay together on the small, twin-sized hospital bed, embracing each other tenderly as if the other would disappear if we let go. I thought you would never wake up. I was so worried. I whimpered. I could say the same thing. For a few days, I thought you were dead. Lauren, I was so worried. So lost without you, he said softly, almost a whisper. I relished the feeling of being in his arms once again, of feeling the warmness of his body as it brushed against mine. I gently placed my hands on his face, pulling him down to meet my lips in a long, awaited kiss. His warm lips brushed against mine slowly, with delicacy. The kiss was deep, conveying our raw emotions of relief and yearning for each other. We pulled away slowly, resting our foreheads together as our lips hovered over one another. Daniel pulled away further, gazing into my eyes fondly. I'm so glad you're gay, he whispered against my forehead before planting a gentle kiss on the skin. I tightened my arms around him, burying my face in his chest. His chin rested on the top of my head and his warm hands with a soothing motion. I took a deep breath and relaxed into him. His familiar scent and touch did wonders for my tense body. The feeling of being in his arms once again was so fulfilling, so conning. I wanted to stay like this forever. I wanted to stay with Daniel forever. He's my home now. Daniel. I felt his chest vibrate as he spoke softly. Yes, princess, I whispered into his chest. I love you. My heart dropped when Daniel remained silent. He lay completely still as he held me, not moving a muscle. Maybe it was too soon. I jumped slightly when Daniel pushed me away from him gently. His mesmerizing blue eyes met mine. They seemed to sparkle in the moonlight, much more than earlier. In that moment, I knew how he felt. His eyes spoke to me before his words did, with a red tint coating the skin on his cheeks. He murmured, I love you too. Chapter 43 Rebuilding. Would you look at that? Indistinct chatter pulled me out of my sleep and into a hazy consciousness. 5 more minutes. Enthusiasm. Mom, a husky voice grumbled beside me. A pair of arms strengthened around me, pulling me closer. I told you we should have came later. A male's voice sounded in the room. This time, a female's voice spoke. But they said he finally woke up. I just wanted to see him. My eyes opened lazily to see Eliza and Keenan standing a few feet away from the bed. When I realized what was going on, I quickly sat up and pulled myself out of bed. Much to Daniel's dismay, he grumbled incoherently, making sounds of disapproval. I quickly apologized to his parents. I'm so sorry. I must have fallen asleep last night. We hadn't seen each other in a while and Keenan put his palm up in the air to stop me from talking. He smiled and said, No, don't apologize. Don't forget there were werewolves too. We understand. Eliza added, We should thank you for keeping our son company and making sure he was okay. I smiled softly, but I was still embarrassed. Daniel rose from bed into a sitting position. He rubbed his eyes sleepily. Mom, Dad. The couple scrambled to their son's side. They both pulled him into an embrace. I watched in awe at their family moment. A smile formed on my lips. I'm glad he has a family who loves and cares for him. Eliza pulled away slightly to give Daniel a loving kiss on his forehead. He chuckled and said, "I'm not 8, Mom." She cheerfully responded, "But you're still my son, who I love very much." My heart jumped at those words. I remembered how I said them to him last night. And he said them back. I pushed the thought away, trying not to think about it so that I wouldn't feel embarrassed. Eliza turned to me with a smile and ushered me with her hand, saying, "Come join us. Sweetie, you're part of this family too." I smiled brightly at Eliza and joined their family hug. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. They stayed to talk with me and Daniel for a while. To my mate's dismay, I learned a lot of interesting, but embarrassing, facts about him, like how he was scared of flat rocks for some reason when he was around 6. Or that he thought he was allergic to girls when he was 9. No way. How did you expect to have a mate? Okay, first of all, I was 9 and was really thinking about mates. And second, maybe my mate could have been a guy. You never know. I chuckled. That's true. We were interrupted by a knock at the door. The door opened slowly and Lucas peeked his head in and scanned the room with his eyes. "Just go in, dummy. They saw you already," Jeremy said from behind the door. Lucas rolled his eyes before entering the room. Jeremy followed closely behind him. Daniel raised his eyebrow at the two. "What is going on? Did you two switch bodies or something? Well, let you kids talk. Your father and I will come back to visit you later with some chicken soup." Eliza beamed at Daniel. "Thanks, Mom," he said happily. She gave him a kiss on the cheek before leaving with Keenan. I looked towards Daniel and said, "I should also give you guys some privacy." Daniel quickly reached for me. He grabbed my waist and pulled me towards him, sitting me down next to him on the hospital bed. "You can stay. That is, I don't want you leaving my side." He spoke with pleading eyes. I smiled and placed my hand on his. "Okay, I'll stay." Daniel turned back towards Lucas and Jeremy. "How's everything? We won the battle, right?" Jeremy looked down silently. Lucas answered in his place. "Yes, we won, but at a great cost." Daniel's face grew with worry. "What happened?" "Alpha John was killed by Raphael," Lucas said solemnly. Daniel's face dropped and he quickly looked at Jeremy. "Jeremy, I'm so sorry. Are you okay? How are you doing?" Jeremy's eyes began to rim with tears, but he held them back. His voice broke as he said, "I'm doing terrible. My dad, HE's gone. I know he did something horrible, but he was still my father. I still miss him." My heart went out to Jeremy. He looked so broken right now. So vulnerable. "Something horrible?" Daniel asked. I began rubbing circles on his hand and said, "I'll tell you later. It was about my parents, so I thought it would be best if I told him." He nodded and looked back at Jeremy. Daniel placed a hand on Jeremy's back and made some small strokes. "He may have made some mistakes, but he was a great father," Daniel said, trying to comfort him. Jeremy nodded silently, agreeing with his statement. "He was the best," Jeremy said sadly. After Daniel and a few other injured wolves recovered from the hospital, Jeremy decided that the pack would hold a funeral for all that were lost during the battle against the rogues. Although there weren't many deaths, he claimed it was his duty to honor those who gave their life on the battlefield. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. The pack was hostile towards Jeremy because of what his father had done. However, they were softened up by the fact that he was holding a funeral for every warrior and pack member that had died. He especially touched the hearts of the mates and families of those who died. He was respectful to them and valued each individual life. Although there was still tension, It would ease up with time. He just had to show everyone that he was a good leader, one that would learn from his father's mistakes. After the funeral, things started to ease up and the pack's anxiousness and lack of trust lowered significantly. Jeremy was stepping up as alpha, taking on the responsibilities and duties that came with his title. However, after a few weeks of observing him as their alpha and as a person, people began thinking he was a weird alpha. Not a bad alpha, just different. In my opinion, I saw his differences as a good thing. He was more caring and gentle than most alphas. Some saw this as a weakness, but I saw it as one of his strengths. Lucas and Daniel were also stepping up to their titles. I was happy for Daniel assuming his position. I knew he would do an amazing job. However, I hated the fact that I would spend less time with him now. He was spending more time in meetings and planning and doing field work. He was even called in the middle of the night sometimes. Jeremy was not only taking my mate during the day, but now during the night too. I need my cuddles to sleep peacefully. I'll be back soon. Princess. Daniel kissed my cheek and pulled on some sweats. I slumped my shoulders and pouted at him as I sat on the edge of the bed in my PJs. Don't give me that look, he said as his eyebrows creased together. I exaggerated my pout more. He closed the distance between us and pulled me into a hug. I rested my head on his stomach and hugged him back. He'll come back as soon as possible. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I nodded into his chest and said, I know. He pulled away and looked down at my face. He pulled my chin up with his finger and said, Don't be sorry, princess. You're cute when you're like this. I felt my face grow hot as I blushed slightly. Go now or I'm not going to let you leave. He chuckled and said, To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. You don't need to stay up waiting for me. We're going back to school in a few days. You're gonna need the rest, especially with all the homework we have to catch up on. I groaned and said, Don't remind me. He smiled and gave me one last kiss on the cheek before saying, I'm going now. You'll be back soon. He made his way to the door and gave me a smile before closing it behind him. I sighed and picked up my phone off the dresser. I wasn't gonna be able to sleep without him, so might as well pass time looking at funny videos on the internet. After a few minutes of scrolling through videos and sending them all to Daniel knowing he probably was going to see them, I received a message. A message from Carly. I quickly sat up and read the message. It said, Carly Oz say, I saw that you were online, so I'm assuming you're okay. I've been worried about you, especially since I haven't heard from you in 3 weeks. I know it's not my place after everything that happened, but I just wanted to talk to you. Can I see you tomorrow? Carly Oz say, P.S. If you say no, I'll hunt you down and keep you in my closet. I laughed to myself. How charming. I opened her message and began thinking of a reply. News Lauren. Hi, Carly. We can meet up tomorrow. I think it's long overdue. Carly Oz say, agreed. See you at my place tomorrow. I put my phone down and smiled to myself. Things were finally looking up for me and Carly. I missed our friendship. I couldn't wait to see her and her family. It's been too long. I eventually began scrolling through videos again, this time with an uplifted mood. I kept thinking about meeting up with Carly and finally fixing things. After half an hour of me getting distracted watching reels, the door opened softly. Daniel walked in cautiously, but stopped when his eyes landed on me. You're not asleep? He asked, surprised. I shook my head. I decided to wait for you. He smiled and began making his way towards me. His knee sank into the bed, creaking slightly at his newly added weight. I scooted over and made room for him. Once his body was fully on the bed, he began his attack on me. He planted kisses all over my face and along my jaw. I giggled as his lips brushed against my skin, leaving behind a ticklish sensation. It's only been an hour. But I missed you, he proclaimed against my skin. I missed you too. He sat up and pulled his shirt over his head, tossing it to the side. It was only a split second, but I enjoyed the view. He dropped himself onto the bed, cuddling beside me. I smiled as he pulled me into his chest and took a deep breath to inhale my scent. He kissed my forehead before nuzzling his nose against my neck. Now I can sleep. I closed my eyes and quickly fell asleep in my mate's arms. Chapter 40 for amends. Good luck, princess, Daniel says before planting a kiss on my cheek. I'll see you soon. I smile at him and say. I elicit a smile out of him when I give him a quick peck on the lips. I step out of Daniel's truck and wave goodbye to him before closing the door behind me. I wait until I see his black Chevy pull away before walking to Carly's doorstep. I take a deep breath before knocking on the door. I hear quick footsteps slowly get louder until the door swings open, revealing Carly in her language. Lauren. She beams before crashing into me, taking me in her small arms. I'm so sorry. Her grip on me tightens as she frantically apologizes. I'm sorry for everything. For being mad at you like that and not listening to what you were saying. For leaving you behind when the fire happened. For being a terrible friend. I push her away gently and look at her face. She looks like she's holding back tears. Hey, you don't need to apologize so much. I made a lot of mistakes and caused misunderstandings between us. I should be the one apologizing. She shook her head and said, I was too harsh. I shouldn't have acted the way I did. And I should have communicated better instead of keeping things from you. After a moment of silence between us, I took a deep breath and smiled. Well, I began. At least we learn it from our mistakes now. I'm glad we made up because I really missed you. She smiled and pulled me into a tight bear hug. Too tight. Even with my werewolf entrance. Is she really human? Me too. It felt like I was a cookie and you took a really big bite and left. She said then pouted. I chuckled. I missed the weirdness that Carly brings into my life. By the way, I wanted to clear something up. I don't want you to think that I was leading you on about Daniel. I genuinely thought he liked you so that's why I encouraged it. I didn't mean to hurt you. But then I found out that he was my mate. Kind of like a soulmate who we're meant to spend the rest of our lead with. I tried to stay away from him so you wouldn't get hurt. But it's a bond that pulls us together. Staying away from each other is impossible. Carly's eyes widened at my words. You mean to tell me you stayed away from such a precious bond like that because of me? I would love to have some sort of deep, magical romance like that and you were throwing it all away from me. She shook her head at me disappointed lie. I chuckled nervously at her response. But thanks for clarifying, she said more seriously. It was hard for me to believe that you were trying to lead me on. I couldn't understand why you would do something like that. I would never do that to you. Not on purpose. You're family to me. Carly, she smiled. You too. You're like the brother I never had. I laughed at her remark. Cool and funny. And by the way, Carly continued, if I couldn't have Daniel, I'm glad at least my best I got to be with such a fine piece of man candy. Yes, fine as hell. I smiled at Carly. She's not wrong about that. I better not catch her drooling over my mate. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nelben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Who's fine as hell? Carly's dad appeared out of nowhere and asked with a raised brow. No one. Carly said quickly, then took my hand, pulling me into the house. I completely forgot we were standing in her doorway. Good afternoon, Carlos. I greet him. It feels like it's been months since I've seen her parents. Hi, Lauren. Long time no see, he says as he smiles brightly at me. We're going up to my room to talk. Bye. She tells him before grabbing my hand and pulling me up the stairs. When we get to her room, Carly lays down on her bed and I follow suit, laying down next to her. We both stare up at the ceiling in silence until I decided to speak. I turn my head to look at Carly. Suo. I wiggle my eyebrows suggestively, then continue. What's up with you and Gay then? She turns a bright shade of pink at my question, which I find funny and adorable. Nothing, she says quickly. Liar. Tell me everything. She smacks me in the face with one of her small fluffy pillows. "Neo, it's too embarrassing." I snatch the pillow from her hands and smack her back. "Hey, watch it. You gorilla. You're gonna knock my head off," she exclaims. I grin at her and say, "I could if I wanted to." She quickly sits up and beamed. "Wait, can you bench press me?" I flash my teeth as I laugh at Carly's question. "Yeah, I'm sure I can," I reply with an amused smile on my face. She gasps, then pleads, "Can you do it? Please, will you tell me what happened with Nathan?" I ask with a raised brow. "Yes," I smile and agree. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Noban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." If that's what it takes. I abruptly reach over and pick up Carly with ease. She squeals and giggles as I hold the top of her back up with one hand and her legs in my other hand. She continues to squeal excitedly as I lower her then bring her back up. Of all things, I never imagined that I would use my werewolf strength to bench press my best friend. After I lower her and bring her up a few times, I start to feel a slight burn on my chest and arms. So I lower her towards the bed and drop her next to me. Yay, why? Now I can say I've even bench pressed before. I'll make sure to add it to my resume. What are you applying for? A job as a dumbbell. Well, if I can't land any other job, might as well spend my day being carried by hot gym dudes. I laugh and shake my head at Carly. So I say suggestively, "Now I'm ready to hear about you and Nathan." She closes her eyes and makes snoring sounds in a horrible attempt to pretend to be asleep. I guess I have no choice. I place my hands on Carly's stomach and ruthlessly attack her sensitive skin, tickling her without mercy. She quickly erupts into laughter, shaking her legs as her arms try to grab at my hands to pry them off. "No, stop," she says in between laughs. I'll tell you." I immediately stop and smile at Carly. "You are the devil, woman." I remain silent and look at her expectantly, waiting for her to start spilling the tea. She takes a deep breath and says, "Remember that one time you asked if anything had happened between Nate and I a while back? I think bad and nod when I remember what she's talking about. It was near my birthday and her and Nathan were acting suspicious." She continues, "We told you it's because he saw my baby pictures, but it was actually because we kissed that day. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Noban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." I exclaim, "Why didn't you tell me?" "I don't know. It was awkward and I didn't want to bring it up again because I thought it was a mistake. But then I couldn't stop thinking about him in that way and kept finding him cute. I realized that I like him a lot. Are you guys going out?" I ask her excitedly. She shakes her head and says, "No. He doesn't know that I like him. But I don't want to say anything because I don't know if he likes me or not. Sometimes I feel like he does, but other times I feel like it's just me seeing what I want to see. He likes you for sure." She raises her brow. "I trusted you last time on that and it didn't go so well. This is different. I've noticed it too. He looks at you a certain way and tries to protect you. Like at the dance when that one pig was harassing you. I don't know. You should try asking him out. I'll think about it. But if I do, I'll have to grow a pair of balls. The ones I had fell off." I laugh at her comment. "They didn't fall off. I stole them while you were sleeping. You witch. How dare you? How dare you call me a witch? You offend my people." Carly rolls over and props herself on her elbows, resting her face in her hands so. "Now that I've told you about Nate, can you tell me what it's like to be a werewolf?" I smile at her enthusiasm. "Sure. What do you want to know?" "Okay. So first of all, what's it like to be a wolf?" "It's kind of nice. As wolves, we have a pack, which are kind of like a second family. And running feels so cool. I move really fast and have quick reflexes. Oh, this one's been bothering me. Do you get periods?" I gave her a puzzled look and asked, "What's a period?" Her jaw dropped and she stared at me in complete shock. I chuckled at her reaction. I'm kidding, Carly. Of course I get periods. I may be a werewolf, but I'm more human than wolf. Good. I was about to throw you out the window. If I have to suffer once every month, you should too. I laughed and asked, any more questions? She smiled. I have about 100 more. Chapter 45, Normality. If you all could bring out your novel, that would be great. I'm going to give you a worksheet with 20 questions. You have until the end of class to finish. The teacher stated, then went to his desk and started using his computer. Carly sighed and said, I hate this novel. I don't even understand what's going on. Have you even read all of it? I asked with a raised brow. She looked away and replied, no, but I read a summary on SparkNet. I shook my head at her and said, Carly, I literally got kidnapped and fought in a war and still found time to read the novel. Hey, I've been really busy. Those naps take effort. You know. I chuckled and said, whatever. It'll help you. Yay, thanks. My grade is on life support. I really need it. I laughed at her comment and brought out my book from my backpack. I began skimming the book for answers to the questions when I felt someone's gaze on me. I turned around, letting my eyes travel to the back of the class. I caught my mate's eyes staring at me lovingly. He had the sweetest smile on his face. You're so pretty, he said through the mind link. I felt my face go hot in embarrassment. I hoped that he didn't notice, but his wide smile told me he did. Focus on your work. I responded through the link, feeling flustered. Yes, miss. To my agent extraordinaire, wildest. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Or should I say miss? Benson. I cheer's gonna be the death of me. I felt my face flush completely. Of all times, why does he decide to flirt in class? I could feel the smugness through the link as he said, it'll let you focus on your work. Princess. To can play this game. Okay. But you look really handsome today. Daniel. Makes me want to go over there and sit on your lap right now. I shut off the mind link, ending the conversation there. I watched his eyes go wide before a tinge of pink appeared on his face. I watched his eyes darken for a second before going back to normal. I chuckled to myself. I see why he likes doing it. This is fun. I turned back around and saw Carly eyeing me suspiciously. Are you guys flirting in class? She asked with her arms crossed. Maybe. EW gross. I pat her on the head and said, let's focus on our work. Carly sighs content lion says, isn't he so hot? Daniel, Jeremy, and Lucas give Carly a weird look. She looks at them and says, what? I smile and shake my head at her. At least she found someone else to drool over who's not my mate. Her eyes watch Nathan intently as he runs across the field below us, kicking the soccer ball with his feet. Daniel, Carly, Lucas, Jeremy, and I are all seated on the bleachers, watching the practice match. Jeremy sighs and asks, what are we even doing here? I'm here because he looks hot playing soccer. Carly replies without hesitation, I'm here because Carly's here. Daniel adds, well, I'm here because Lauren's here. Jeremy shakes his head and says, and I'm here because Daniel's here. Lucas sighed, and I'm here because Jeremy is here. I chuckled. The situation was kind of funny, and I'm here because you're all super hot. Any of you're single? I'll even take the girls. We all turned to look behind us. On the bleachers, a girl in our grade wearing all black was sat right behind us. When she saw we were all looking at her, she winked at us. Daniel wrapped an arm around me as to say that we were both taken. When Jeremy saw us, he wrapped an arm around himself. He sighed dreamily and said, I'm in love already. With Jeremy. Carly looked her over and said, you're hot, but that guy on the field is hotter. No luck here, the girl said before turning to Lucas. She reached over to touch his back and said, but you look like you don't have anyone. To my agent extraordinaire, wildest. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Ingay, he said with a straight face, causing me Jeremy. And Daniel to burst out laughing. She sighed and stood up, leaving the bleachers. When did you come out of the closet? Lucius. Why didn't I know about it? Jeremy said, with a smirk on his face. Lucas sighed and said, You know, I was only saying that so she would back off. I leaned forward and turned my head to meet Lucas's eyes. I smiled and said, Lucas, you just dug your own grave. They're not letting this one go. He shook his head and said, In just a joke to them. Jeremy and Daniel went in to hug Lucas. He squirmed as they wrapped their arms around him. Oh, you know we love you, Jeremy proclaimed. Jeremy swooped in towards Lucas's face and gave him a kiss on the cheek. When he pulled away, he was met with a horrified look from Lucas. What are you doing? He asked, disgusted. Showing you how much I love you. Daniel and I burst out laughing while Lucas rolled his eyes at Jeremy. I looked over to Carly to see that she was eating popcorn from a bag she had in her hands while watching Jeremy and Lucas. Where the hell did she get that from? I turned my head to see Nathan jogging towards us. He was covered in sweat, some drops rolling down his forehead and neck. When he stood in front of us, he smiled when he looked at Carly. Not just any smile. A bright, toothy smile. Yep, I whipped. No way he doesn't like her back. He sat down next to her and said, Wow, what's with the audience today? We came here to check you out, Jeremy said with a flirty smile, causing Carly to glare at him. Nathan smiled and said, So that's the gaze I felt burning into my back. No, that was me that was Car, Jeremy started, but I quickly reached over to cover his mouth. In saving Carly from this embarrassment, Carly gave me a thankful smile, then turned to Nathan. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I saved you a sandwich from lunch, she said as she extended the sandwich to him. Nathan recoiled at the sight of the sandwich. The sandwiches are usually expired. The meat smells awful, he said, while pinching his nose. Carly shrugged and said, It only leaves a bitter taste in your mouth. It's not that bad. Nathan took the sandwich and reluctantly began opening the plastic packaging. He gave me a pleading look, so I helped him out. Hey Nathan, didn't you say you were going to be vegetarian for a week? I asked as I crossed my arms. Oh, you're absolutely right. How could I forget? He says enthusiastically. Carly shrugs and says, More for me, before taking the sandwich from his hands. When Carly peels back the wrapper, I'm immediately hit by the rancid smell of the ham and cheese. I flinch when the smell reaches my nose. Sometimes I hate my enhanced abilities. I look over to see that Daniel, Lucius, and Jeremy all have a disgusted look on their face. We look at each other knowingly. I gag when Carly happily takes a bite out of the sandwich and smiles. In out, Lucas says while standing up. Jeremy follows suit and says, I've seen enough. I'm scarred for life now. Daniel stands up then extends his hand towards me, offering to help me up. I rejoice at the sparks that emanate from his touch when I take his hand. He pulls me up but intertwines his fingers with mine instead of letting go. I smile at the gesture. Nathan looks at our connected hands, then at us. He smiles at me and says, You seem happy. I am, I reply with a smile of my own. Through our mate bond, I feel Daniel's excitement soar. He appreciated that I said that. Where are you going? Carly asks me. We have something to do. You guys should stay here and talk, I say with a smile on my face, giving Carly a suggestive look. Yes, I wanted to get away from the horrid stench coming from that sandwich, but I also saw it as a good opportunity to give them some time alone with each other. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. See you later, Horen, she says cheerfully. Later, Nathan says while waving. I wave back before turning and leaving with Daniel. Jeremy and Lucas had left while we stayed behind to talk to them. This gave me and Daniel some time alone with each other. We walked hand in hand throughout the school. We found a bench under a tree and decided to sit there. How's it feel being back in school? Daniel asked me. I took a few seconds to think about it before answering. As much as I hate class and homework, it's kind of nice. I get to see my friends again. Plus, it'll take high school drama over werewolf drama any day. Daniel chuckled and added, To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. High school drama I can handle. Werewolf drama is too stressful. Daniel rested his head on my shoulder and closed his eyes. I smiled and leaned into him. This is nice. I hope he'll always be this happy. Chapter 46. New couple are. He asked me out. Carly squealed from beside me. Wait. What? I asked excitedly. Nathan asked me out. When how? Yesterday he came over at 7 and asked if I wanted to go somewhere with him. I agreed and he took me to this pier next to the beach and he said that he likes me. Then he asked if I wanted to be his girlfriend. I smiled as Carly beamed while she was telling me about yesterday. I'm so happy for you. I exclaimed. Me too. Now I have a partner in crime. I don't need to fight off the potatoes by myself. What? Confused. You didn't know. The potatoes are attacking. One of them flew around my room the other day and another tried to choke me while I was sleeping. I furrowed my eyebrows. What are you talking about? She shook her head at me and said, Not just anyone can understand. Don't worry about it. Just beware of the potatoes. Okay. I will. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Completely weirded out. The school bell rang and students started flooding the classroom. When the teacher entered, I stood up to go to my assigned seat. See you after 2 miserable hours, Carly said as I walked away. The teacher began giving instructions as I was sitting down in my seat. Take out your books now. Turn to page 326. MSG, Assie shouted. It was barely 8 in the morning and she was already yelling at us. While I was taking out my book from my backpack, a student walked into the classroom. Gussie immediately turned to him, giving him the meanest glare he'd ever seen. Why are you late to class? He ignored her and went to his seat without responding. Immediately after he sat down, a textbook was flung in his direction. It bonked him on the head, knocking him out. His desk mate jumped at the sight of him and scrambled to pull her textbook out of her backpack, scared for her life. I feel like I haven't seen you in years. Julianne whispered to me. You're exaggerating. It's been a few weeks. I responded. How do you get away with skipping class for so long? Werewolf privilege. Since the vice principal is a werewolf, there's no questions asked. I gave him a smug smile and said, Not telling. IWWW, come on, help the buddy out. I shook my head. Sorry. Luther, you're just gonna have to keep pushing through class. Mimi, to think I let you in on my make-out spot. I winked at him and said, Thanks for that. By the way, I was suddenly nudged by Julian, who signaled me to look forward with his head. I turned to see Miss Gussie glaring at us with her arms crossed before resuming her lesson. At least she didn't throw a book at us. Julian and I looked at each other but remained silent. To our agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I tried to focus. Finals were coming up after all. It was time to get serious. For a moment, I pondered how I ended up here. I was in Carly's room sitting next to Daniel with Carly and Nathan next to us. We were all sitting on a portable circular desk studying together. And by study, I mean Daniel, Nathan, and I was studying. Carly was playing with some worms she got from the backyard. What did you guys get for number 5? Nathan asked. I saw Carly put the worms in her hair, letting them crawl around. Before I turned my attention to the boys on either side of me, I got 10x9. Daniel answered, then looked at me. What about you? I got 3x7. Nathan sighed and said, I got -5. What the Daniel started. How did you get -5? I don't know. I don't even know how to solve these types of problems. "I'm just winging it," Nathan responded. Carly kneeled down behind Nathan and gave him a back hug. "At least you got a number and not a letter this time." She tried comforting him. "You didn't need to bring that up," Nathan protested, but I saw a slight blush creep on his face. I smiled at the two. They were adorable. Suddenly, Nathan screeched and bolted up. "There's a worm in my hair." He frantically shook his head around and dusted his head with his hands. "Carly, Daniel," and I laughed as Nathan fought to remove the worms from his scalp. "Come here, you wimp," Carly told Nathan as she pulled him towards her. He knelt down to let Carly look at his hair. She picked up the worm and placed it in her palm before closing her hand. Nathan closed his eyes and pulled Carly into a hug. Carly giggled when he placed his head on her shoulders. "And I thought it was bad when you had lice," Nathan commented. "The lice were friends. They needed a home," Carly defended. Nathan shook his head and made Carly put the worm back into its box. He then pulled Carly towards the table and sat her down next to me before taking his own seat. "Study now. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm," he instructed her. Carly groaned but responded with, "Ugh, fine." My lips stabbed up into a smile. At least I don't have to act like Carly's mom anymore. She has her boyfriend for that now. "Good." Nathan smiled brightly at her and gave her an affectionate pat on the head. Carly looked down and smiled shyly, looking completely smitten. He turned to us and continued. "So what was the correct answer?" Daniel flipped to the back of the book to find the answer, then said, "I had it right. It was 10x9. What know-it-all?" Nathan teased. "A know-it-all who's going to help you learn how to solve the problem correctly," I replied in Daniel's defense. Daniel smiled at me before giving me a quick peck on the cheek. He looked at Nathan and said, "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." Nathan rolled his eyes and responded, "Whatever. Know it all. Now show me how to do it." My mate smiled and said, "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." Day then. Chapter 47 Finals. I tapped my pen against my desk as I tried to make sense of the equation on my sheet. I tried studying this, but Cal didn't get the hang of it. My desk mate Julian gave me a knowing look. He was also stuck. I stopped clicking my pen when I realized it was the only sound in the classroom, which was completely silent besides the sound on pencils scribbling on paper. I smiled when an idea came to mind. Daniel was nearby, so it should work. "Hey, Daniel." "Yes, princess," he responded through the mind link. "I need help." "Aren't you supposed to be doing your final right now?" "That's exactly why I need help." "What do you need help with?" His voice echoing in my head. "How do you find the derivative of a function? Use the equation d over dx. Multiply the entire equation by that. You're the best." To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Princess. I'm lucky my mate is good at math. I quickly wrote down the equation and used it to solve the problem. I remembered the steps, so the rest was easy. "You have 10 minutes left," the teacher announced to the class. Everyone looked up momentarily before quickly turning back to their papers and writing frantically. I moved on to the next problem and solved it with ease. The question was from a module that was taught at the beginning of the semester when I still attended class regularly. I closed the packet and walked to the teacher's desk, dropping it in the pile with all the other exams. I went back to my seat and saw Julian staring at me with his mouth wide open. I smiled at him and pulled out a novel I was currently reading from my backpack. He turned back to his paper and began tapping his foot anxiously. When the time was up, everyone turned in their papers and left the classroom. I was going to walk to my next class with Carly, but she ran out of the classroom before I could reach her. I watched her run into Nathan's arms, who was waiting for her outside the classroom. I chuckled when I saw her smack his ass, then run away when he started chasing her. How do you think you did? I looked to my right to see Julian staring at me. Decent. Probably enough to pass. I answered him. He sighed dramatically and said, You must be nice to have more than one brain cell. I laughed at his silly remark. With a smile. I replied, Yeah, I have to. My mates and mine. How did you guys do on your finals? Nathan asked me. Daniel and Carly. We were all sitting at a lunch table on the day that we got our results back. I passed them all. Daniel replied nonchalantly with the straw from his juice box still touching his lips. I watched as he continued sipping his apple juice when he was done answering. That's expected. You nerd. Nathan commented playfully. Carly added. You're lucky you can fail one class and still graduate. I mentioned. Nathan just rubbed Carly's arm to console her, though she didn't seem too bothered by the fact that she failed. Nathan looked at me and asked, What about you? I sighed and said, I passed all of them. Woodolph had all as if it wasn't for my being science. Daniel reached for my hand under the table and held it in his own. Science sucks anyways. That class was really boring. He sympathized, trying to make me feel better. I gave him a thankful smile and began rubbing circles on the back of his hand. What about you? I asked Nathan. I got some CS and BS. Except for history. I cast that with Anna, saying the last part proudly. Well, you are studying history in college. I mentioned. You're not wrong there. He agreed before taking a bite of the tacos his mom prepared for him for lunch. Our attention was turned away from each other when a guy's voice echoed throughout the cafeteria. Why do you tell the teacher I was looking at your paper? He shouted into a small boy's face after shoving him. I immediately stood up after realizing who the timid boy was. Evan. I didn't know what exactly was going on, but I knew he didn't deserve this. Lauren. Daniel called out to me, but I was already walking away and approaching the commotion. Before the stupid bully could realize I was there, I swung my leg at his feet, knocking him off his balance. He fell to the ground, his face turning red with rage and embarrassment. It's not Evan's fault that you're so stupid you can't do your own work. Stop cheating off of him, I declare as I stare down at him. He quickly rises to his feet and gives me the meanest glare. His fists ball up at his sides, but he looks too scared to try anything on me. Leave Evan alone or I'll tell the principal that you're not only cheating off another student, but also bullying him. His mouth wavers as it opens but immediately closes shut at a loss for words. Fucking losers, he mutters before quickly storming out of the cafeteria. Want me to beat him up for that? Daniel asks through MindLink. No, it's no big deal. But I appreciate the thought. I respond. I close the link and ask Evan, Are you okay? He looks up at me and nods, but it looks like HE is fighting back tears. Evan, I say gently, It's okay to say you're not okay. That guy was yelling at you and about to hurt you. It's normal to feel upset or sad about it. He seems to break down at my words, a tear escaping his eyes. He quickly wipes it away with his sleeves and pulls on his hoodie to hide his face. I gently place my hands on his back and lead him outside away from invasive eyes and hushed whispers. We sit at a bench, out of sight from other students and teachers. Achias regained his composure at this point, but he still seems so fragile. I'm sorry. He apologizes. You're always helping me. Even back when the fire happened. You and the other senior made sure I was safe. That's nothing to apologize for, I declared. Evan looked at me, giving me a weak yet thankful smile. His smile fell when he looked away from me, facing forward. He gathered both his hands together and began to fidget with them. A lost look spread across his face. A lot's going on right now, he said softly. After a pause he continued. My mom is really sick. The doctors say she only has a few months left to live. My dad doesn't make things any easier for her, spending his days and money drinking. My sister, the only person who I felt like I could count on, left for college. I haven't seen her in almost a year. It's been hard to be happy or to feel okay. Evan choked on the last words. hiding himself behind his hood out of habit. "Oh, Evan," I said sympathetically as my eyebrows creased together. My heart went out to Evan, who was fighting a difficult battle. Everything was slowly crumbling, and eventually it would all fall apart. Though I didn't experience half of what he had to go through, I understood the emotion he was feeling, hopelessness about his situation. I carefully extended my arm, stroking his shoulder in an attempt to comfort him. "Even though I'll graduate high school soon, I'll still be in town. You can call me if you need anything, or if you just need a friend." He gave me a weak smile and replied, "Thank you. You're the only person in this school who I feel like I can talk to." "I feel honored." I gave him a gentle smile and pulled down his hood to ruffle his hair. "We haven't known each other too long, but Evan feels kind of like a little brother. I just want what's best for him."